Until you're ready to come in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. And man, we got a lot of crazy stuff to talk about. I don't think anything to this degree has ever happened to close together fights in terms of cancellations and replacement fights. And man, it couldn't have happened to a worse fight than UFC 303, which there are some other amazing fights, right? We know Jamal Hills was scheduled to be on that card, which has also been canceled. We'll get to that in a second. We've got Ian Gary, who's a big star in his own right, versus Michael Venom Page. That was a dope fight. That one's still happening as far as we know. But that card pretty much revolved around Conor McGregor. And if you've been following along with the drama, the presser was canceled. We didn't know why, but there was a lot of speculations. I did a video yesterday where I was pointing out in Ariel Helwani's discussion of the situation. He made a point to say sometimes things happen in training camp that blah blah blah. So he was very strongly hinting the fact that, look, this is something. What else happens at training camp? Not contract negotiation. He was insinuating that there was some injury, right? And that's what people were hearing through the grapevine, including Josh Thompson. We went back and forth. Even some people had their conspiracy theories that this was all a ploy. Other people thought this was because he didn't want to do press media obligations, that he was getting canned from the fight, essentially, which I thought was nonsense, and it just didn't make any sense. There's too much on the line. So it now comes out that there indeed was an injury. So we're going to start right off the top here with this injury. Conor McGregor is injured. And just to let you know, it still hasn't been released what the nature of this injury is. And the one positive sign we can say for sure is that since there was a chance the fight was going to go ahead, probably doesn't seem extraordinarily serious where he's going to be out for a very long time, right? So that's hopefully a good sign. But anyways, Justin, let me turn it over to you first and foremost. This is the first question I want to ask you. With this happening, with Conor being out, there's a lot of speculation as to whether or not Conor will even ever fight again. So Justin, turn it over to you. What do you think? Do you even expect to see Conor McGregor back in the octagon?
Man, as we talked before, I made a short, last week or the week before about this whole debacle. Is, again, we're going to go back, and I know I keep beating a dead horse, but it's very, very important, guys. MMA fans don't understand the mentality of MMA, of how mentally challenging, not just physically challenging, but mentally challenging, especially when you don't need to. Conor McGregor's legacy is cemented. He's a millionaire. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, I mean, I'm guessing hundreds of millions of dollars. Why would he want to get in there just to get injured more? And when I said this, people are like, oh, his legacy. Man, he's the 2-division champ, man. He's won 2 different weight classes at what? It's funny, my buddy Aaron, I know you know him, Aaron O'Rourke, he's a professional gambler. He actually made a bet 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember. I think it was after he fought Cowboy Cerrone, or no, it might have been after he fought Poirier the first time or the second time. He bet somebody that he will never fight again. And if he does fight again, and I don't know if he would never fight again or if he would never win a fight again. And so far, I believe it was since Cerrone, Aaron is winning this bet, man. So he made this claim several years ago, and so far it's been through. He's lost twice to Dustin Poirier. He has a nasty leg break. And I know he's like, oh, well, my leg broke. It's like, dude, you were losing the fight anyways. Like, it wasn't like you were winning and then broke your leg. Unfortunately, man, I love Conor McGregor. I love his antics. I love his press conference. I love watching the guy fight, regardless of how I feel about him as a person. I think he's entertaining to the max. Conor McGregor is the UFC, but I'm pretty sure his career's over.
Wow. Okay, that's powerful. And there are some other folks. I listened to Anthony Smith and Daniel Cormier and Brett Okamoto talk about it.
Daniel Cormier said the same thing. He goes, Conor McGregor probably will never step foot. I saw it, and I'm sitting here at the poker room in Detroit waiting to pick my buddy up. And, I was on Instagram, following up on this. And Daniel Cormier said he probably never will fight again. And just to reiterate what Aaron said several years ago, I just don't see it happening.
Okay, let me give you a different perspective, and maybe this was wishful thinking, but here's one thing I want to say, and especially in response to this notion that he's made too much money, he's been too successful, and etc. So the one bit of perspective that I want to add to this is from my main business, where I work with a lot of families in all sorts of different spectrums financially. And I'm just going to mute you for 1 second, just for the background noise. So I work with all sorts of different families, and some of the families that I work for, it essentially are in a position, let's say, where, maybe financially you don't have to think so much about what to do career-wise, right? But I can tell you this, that in those families, it is extraordinarily important to build passion in their children, to get them involved in education, get them involved in extracurriculars. Because I think the thing is that at the end of the day, yes, money is a big motivator in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, it's about finding an area of passion, finding something that you can cling to. Because if you don't, especially somebody in Conor's situation, I should emphasize this: somebody in Conor's situation with that much means at his disposal and his personality type and all these things, that's actually worse than if you had no money right now. He can actually dig himself. And we've seen this before with different fighters and different celebrities that accumulate this mass amount of wealth, and without supervision, without purpose, without something to kind of keep them centered and on the, keep their nose to the grindstone, or whatever the saying is, they can go off the rails and get into a much worse predicament than if they have something in the area of focus. Alexander Volkanovski has talked about the psychological torment that can go on when you don't have something to focus you. So I do think, regardless of his financial situation, that he's in that position where he recognizes that he needs something to keep him grounded. Now, it could be another business venture. It could be a lot of other things. It could be his family, but I think just based on what Conor has said, he loves the game so much that I think this is the one and only thing that can truly keep him focused, excited, motivated, eager. What do you think about my theory? Because I do think he's coming back, and that also is what Anthony Smith said. I do think he will eventually come back, and he's got to fight. He's got to right this wrong. Does that sway you or no?
I mean, I like the opinion. I like the idea, and it makes complete sense. You look at guys like Mike Tyson that were worth, hundreds of millions of dollars and have went broke. And he talks about how he's been broke. I remember, it was like, I don't know, I can't remember exactly. It was like 10 or 15 years ago. I was at a bar and Mike Tyson was there. I was like, holy shit, like this is the craziest thing ever. And he was asking people to buy him drinks. And somebody ended up telling me because he didn't have enough money to buy his own drinks. So I think Conor McGregor's too smart to go down that path to where he's going to blow all his money or have a Don King kind of come in and take away. I see too many avenues right now. He had the very successful whiskey business that he branded that I heard that you would know better. I think he sold it for some ridiculous amount, like 200 million or something like that. And then, you got to look at Roadhouse, man. Did he have a stellar performance? To me, it wasn't a stellar performance, but it was an entertaining performance. And that's something he could take up too. He could be an incredible actor. He could go to the WWE. He doesn't have to get back into the octagon and go at these killers that are genuinely going to try to hurt him. Because, from a fighter's perspective, any of his opponents don't like him. They're going to try to hurt him. They're going to attack that leg. They're going to find out what his injury is or what his reoccurring injury is. It might be his leg. It might be something else. And they're going to attack that. Conor McGregor's in his 30s. He's not a young spring chicken anymore. Healing's going to take longer. And I think that's why he was out of the USADA pool for so long, was because he was on steroids trying to regenerate his health. And, as a fighter, as an opponent, let's say if I was going to go to Conor McGregor, I personally, especially when you have the utility or the utilities that guys do in the UFC, like we can really, maximize our chance of re-injuring this guy and hurting him in the fight. Because remember, the idea of a fight, man, people can be like, oh, we respect. I want to hurt my opponent. I want to make sure they cannot continue so I win that money. And I feel with all the tools that fighters have and all the people around, I just don't think it's smart for Conor to get back in there. Look at Anderson Silva, how he came back from that leg break, that nasty leg break against Chris Weidman, and he never was the same. He still had some incredible fights, but mentality Anderson Silva was just never the same, and I don't think he had very much success after that again.
Okay, well, fair enough. I guess, like I said, I get what you're saying. I just hope that he does come back, just because I want to see him. And he was looking sharp in some of that sparring footage. But let's turn it over to Michael Chandler, right? We've been focusing on Conor McGregor. Michael Chandler has been saying all week that the fight's still happening. I don't know if he really knew the full ins and outs. I don't think he did, me personally, just from the things he was posting and what he was saying. And that kind of seems to be the theme of this entire fight fiasco, is that he is down to fight. He is down for whatever. And he's just waiting, hoping and praying that Conor's going to show up and he's going to perform. Sadly, this injury happened. I don't think this is Conor's fault. Had an injury, sustained it. I'm sure it happens all the time. But what do you think if you were Michael Chandler? Let's put it like this. If you were Michael Chandler, let me make this a two-part question. A, would you have waited this long? And B, what would you do now at this point?
Would I have waited this long? Absolutely. I see a lot of criticism online, and fans are just so fucking stupid, man. Like, I think, like, fans of the sport that don't know anything besides they watch it on TV is they think we're indestructible human beings, that we can't get hurt, and then we just need to keep going. Like I saw at least 2 posts today, people talking about, man, if Michael Chandler just fought, as much as often as he did in the past, up until in these last 2 years, he would have made as much money as he would have fighting Conor McGregor one time. You guys are fucking stupid. Like, yeah, say he would have fought 3 times, or let's say 3 times. That's a pretty easy number. That's 3 weight cuts. That's 3 chances of injury. He's fighting 3 top of the world athletes. He could get injured. He could have a bad weight cut. So many things can happen in those 3 fights. Instead, just wait for the one chance to where he has 1 weight cut. He has a guy that's, not as good as he used to be. He's falling off the hill. Like, of course, anybody with any brain would have done what Michael Chandler would have done. And any fans that say otherwise obviously have never been in a combat fight before, an MMA fight, let alone a fight in the UFC, guys. Now, understanding the difference between MMA fighters and UFC fighters, there is a significant difference, man. We're talking about the best fighters in the world. It's not like Joe Schmo, Michael Chandler is going to go in there and knock a guy out in 30 seconds 3 times in a row and get paid the money. He's going to take damage. His body's going to take damage in the weight cuts. So to answer part 1, would I have waited? Absolutely. He waited for the red panty night. He waited 2 years for it, man. Unfortunately, it just didn't come to fruition with him, man. It's a game that he played. But I'll tell you this, I know the UFC pretty well. Obviously, I was in it for almost 18 months. Like, Michael Chandler isn't going unpaid for 2 years. I mean, he's doing stuff to make money. You just can't. I don't care. Like, unless you're making Conor McGregor money, you can't just take 2 years off of life. Whether the UFC is getting him a chuck, like, hey, here's 1 championship. I don't know if it's if I'm allowed to talk about it or not, so I'm not going to mention any names. But 1 championship pays their fighters a salary, a monthly salary. And this is not, oh, this is what I think. This is what I know. I work with fighters that fight for 1, and they get a base salary monthly. And depending on your popularity, depending on your rank, depending on where you are in your career, depends on how much money you get. I don't think Michael Chandler went without a check for 2 years. I think the UFC was probably sending him a check. I know when Darren Cruikshank was in the UFC, he was my college roommate. I remember one time after one of his knockouts, he got a hidden check per se that nobody was supposed to know about, to help pay for bills because he had an incredible performance. And I'm sure the same things happened with Michael Chandler. So to answer question A, absolutely, I would have done what he did, and he did. And unfortunately, the red panty night probably isn't going to come through, but I'm sure he's not broke. And what was part B or part 2?
Well, yeah, it was basically, would you have done it? Would you have waited? And you said yes. And then basically, what do you think he should do now? It sounds like you're saying he still should wait, or you said now you think red panty night won't happen. So what would you do at this juncture?
I think Michael Chandler has to start thinking about moving on now. Unfortunately, I'm sure that the UFC took care of him in that downtime, but remember, out of sight, out of mind. And Michael Chandler's his last victory, Tony Ferguson, I think he's 1-4 in his last 5 or 1-3 in his last 4. I mean, if he wants a shot at becoming the UFC champion, he has to get off the couch now. And when I say get off the couch, I don't mean that he's not been training. Obviously, the guy's an animal. He's been training his ass off for the last 2 years, getting ready for this Conor McGregor scrap. Thanks, bro. Getting ready for this Conor McGregor scrap. But with that being said, it's time to move on. Unless his goal is just primarily just to make money for the next couple of years, yeah, you can wait for Conor for another 6 months or so. But if he really wants to get to that UFC strap and he really wants to hold gold in the UFC, he needs to get active and he needs to start winning fights because, again, he's either 1-3 or 1-4 in his last 4 or 5. And unfortunately, man, without having a little streak behind you, I was on a 6-fight win streak when I got to the UFC. You know what I mean? So and that was just to get in. We're talking about world championship status now. He needs to get the ball rolling. I'm a huge Michael Chandler fan. I've trained with him for years. He has what it takes to be the champion, but he can't go unnoticed anymore. He has to get off the couch. He has to get in the cage. He has to compete.
Yeah, so I just checked his record. You were absolutely right. He's 1-3 for his last 4. So just a quick recap. He lost to Charles Oliveira. That was a very close fight, by the way. And he was winning. He almost had Oliveira out in the first round. If you guys remember that he lost to Justin Gaethje. That was a barn burner. That was an insane fight.
Beat Tony here. I can move seats.
Beat Tony Ferguson. That was an amazing knockout. Remember the head kick. Yeah. And then last but not least, he lost to Dustin Poirier. So that's kind of where it's been. He has had a little bit of a rough road those last 4 fights, but all great performances, all amazing fights that the fans loved. And pretty intense fights where he did take a lot of damage. All right, well, I guess we'll have to see what happens next. My final question on Michael Chandler is, and this is something that I've heard a lot of people like MMA Joey, MMA Guru, different folks like that I listen to talk about. Do you feel bad for Michael Chandler, given the situation, given that he's had to wait this long at his age? Or are you like, hey, that comes with the territory? He knew the risks involved. He made a conscientious decision to kind of bet on this fight happening, and that just sometimes how it goes.
I mean, how can you not feel bad for the guy? But I mean, it's yes to both of your questions. Do I feel bad for him? Yes, but he knew that. I mean, the risk of waiting for a matchup. I mean, these things can happen. It's not like this is like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. I mean, this can happen to any fight, whether it's on the regional scene, whether it's your first fight in the UFC. I mean, dude, like I feel terrible for him, but he understood the risk of waiting. He knew, especially with Conor McGregor's history breaking his leg. We're talking about a fib fracture. That's a devastating injury, and he knew the risk, and I'm sure his manager knew the risk. And I guarantee Mike Chandler is a very smart dude. I'm sure that he's talked it over with his coaches, with his management. Hey, there is a risk. If he doesn't show up, we're going to be off the couch, or we're going to be on the couch for 2 years. And I mean, he understood the risk. He took the risk. But to answer your first question, yes, absolutely, I feel bad because you never want this stuff to happen. I don't want Conor McGregor to get injured. I don't want him to be injured so bad that he can't compete. I don't wish that upon anybody. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, it can happen whether you have a 6-week camp, a 3-week camp, a 2-year camp. Shit like this happens all the time, unfortunately. And yeah, I do feel bad for him, but he understood the risk going into it.
Fair enough. Okay, by the way, we just got a couple quick messages. What's up, lads? From Western Mass Climber. Good evening from Pern, because he is all the way in Denmark, so it's nighttime. I believe it's Denmark.
Pern, if you're in Denmark, dude, you got all these guys from Denmark have been staying at my house.
Oh,
Yeah, dude. My last two guys, Martin Kampman is a super close friend of mine. Man, if you're he's probably the best MMA fighter to ever come out of Denmark. He was ranked third. I was one of his training partners getting ready for his fight. I just had a kid named Danny. A kid named Jacob was my nutritionist. He made all my nutrition. So shout out to Denmark, man. They've been huge supporters of the Guitar Hero. And now watching our stream, I just really support all you guys from Denmark helping me out.
amazing. All right, let's move it along. There's so much to talk about. This is completely insane. We're going to move it on to topic number 2. This is arguably the biggest story for me of the week. Well, I don't know. I mean, the Conor fight's huge. But as you know, and people who've watched the show, Khamzat Chimaev is my all-time favorite fighter in the UFC. Love the guy. Love everything about him. I like his attitude. I like his commitment to helping other people. He always says, hey, people are like, you're going to be rich. He's like, no, I'm not going to be rich. I'm going to take the money and I'm going to help the people around me and use it to help them and help the rest of the world. So he's got this amazing positive mindset. He wants to do good on the planet. Plus, he is, I still think, maybe the greatest fighter of all time once all is said and done. But then we find out this horrible news basically the same day that it's now announced that Conor's out of the fight. We find out that Khamzat Chimaev is pulling out of his June 22nd fight in Saudi Arabia. It was going to be broadcasted on, I believe, ABC, national TV for free. And he's out. And oh my God, what an amazing. Yeah, Western Mass Climber says my Khamzat prediction goes into the garbage. That is so, it's just so sad. Like, this guy, to me, is the realest of the real. And people have said at in other shows, when you watch a fighter on the come up rise to greatness, rise to become a champion, and then see what they can do after that, is one of the most incredible things about mixed martial arts and this entire sport, is watching the come up and then just seeing what they can do, going on that journey with them, especially somebody who's just so beloved, in my opinion, like Khamzat Chimaev. So this is absolutely devastating. Dana White says he wishes him a speedy recovery. And they found a replacement fight, which we're going to talk about later on in the show, for Robert Whittaker, which is pretty crazy that they found somebody this short notice. It's completely bananas. But anyways, Justin, turning it over to you. This is a week and a half away from the fight. Okay, actually, no, what am I talking about? It's 8 days away, so barely over a week away. Khamzat is out. I mean, what? I don't even know what to say. Like, what are your thoughts on this late in the game of a pullout?
Well, let me tell you this. I hear some interesting statistics that I found out. So Khamzat's first year in the UFC, he fought 4 times. His first year, 4 times. That is an incredible feat. That's once every 3 months.
Yeah.
Since then, the last 3 or 4 years he's been in the UFC, he's fought 4 times. Khamzat is so tough with the weakest immune system on the planet Earth. I really feel this, and you know what? I'm gonna get a lot of hate for saying this, and I'm gonna get a lot of comments. And people are gonna tell me I'm stupid and don't know what I'm talking about, and that's fine. But ever since he fought Gilbert Burns, I just felt he's been different, man. man, I really think Gilbert exposed him. Man, I thought he was so confident going in. Do you remember, oh, brother, you small? And then it became a competitive fight. I know Khamzat clearly won the fight, but it was competitive. And I think Khamzat maybe in his head thinks he's not as good as he once thought. With that being said, how does this guy keep getting sick, man? Like, I'm telling you, when you're in the UFC, you are taken care of by doctors. I was basically an undercard fighter my whole career in the UFC, and I have doctors I can call every day. I have nutritionists I can talk to. I have this, I have that. I have every protocol in the book to make sure I show up to fight day healthy. How is he he's backed out four times, like something ridiculous. He's backed out like 6 times. He's back. I can't remember exactly what the stat is, but he's backed out an absurd amount of times from being sick, whether it was COVID. I remember he talked about retirement from COVID. Now there's this. Like, what does this guy do to have to be healthy to get to show up in the cage?
Yeah, it's kind of concerning because I just don't know. So there was 2 times he had to pull out from the Leon Edwards fight. First, Leon Edwards pulled out from COVID, and then Khamzat pulled out twice from COVID. I just don't know. It's kind of scary. It's kind of sad. And again, especially with somebody with this much promise, this much buzz, this much excitement behind him, it's just absolutely devastating. So I don't know. I hope and I want to believe that this is not an indication of what's to come. I want to believe that he can come back for the Abu Dhabi card or maybe some other card. Obviously, again, we have these visa issues that continue to pop up. So it's not going to be a U.S. card probably. So we're going to have to play around with that. But man, I am just so disappointed. Now, let's move it along a little bit on the same topic. We're going to come back to Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka, which is the replacement fight for McGregor. We're going to come back to that, but let's just move right in to Robert Whittaker. So they found a replacement fight for Robert Whittaker. It's Ikram Aliskerov. Do you know who this guy is?
Never heard of him.
All right, so
Couldn't care less about the fight.
Yeah, well,
I'm so bummed because I was so excited to see Khamzat fight. I really am, and they could have put anybody in there, man, and it really wouldn't have. They could have put Colby Covington in there. Oh, no, that would have been cool, but I mean, I'm just not excited about it, man. When you have that much hype about Khamzat, he's coming, he's facing a former champ. Like, this is his time to shine. It doesn't matter who they put in there. I'm disappointed. I'm not excited about this matchup.
Yeah, and I feel pretty much the same way. Although the interesting thing about Ikram Aliskerov is I think he's like 15-1. He's got a crazy record, and his one loss is to Khamzat. He got uppercut knocked out, and it's one of like Khamzat's highlight reels. So Khamzat is beating him, but nobody else is beating him. He's a good fighter, but I hate to say I'm not excited as well. And I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'm not positive, but I want to hear your take.
I gotta play my blinds, but I'll be on mute. Just keep going. I'm listening.
No problem. I'm pretty sure that the winner of this fight now is not going to have that same title contention spot that was promised. Essentially, the winner of this, and I think it really applied more to Khamzat than anybody, but I think it would have applied to Robert Whittaker as well. But it seems as though that's got to be off the table now. I mean, if Robert Whittaker gets a victory here, I'd be shocked if that would line him up for a title shot following that. But Justin, I don't know if you have a chance to answer this question, but do you think if Robert Whittaker beats this guy, and I think he's ranked 15th or he's even unranked, right? He's got a lot of hype behind him, but he's only had 2 fights in the UFC. Do you think if Robert Whittaker pulls out a victory here, it still slides him into a title shot, or he's going to probably have to fight somebody else like Sean Strickland?
I think he's going to have to fight somebody else like Sean Strickland. Because I mean, I don't know, man. It's hard for me to get any, really if he fought Khamzat, I really thought, like that would be the one, that would be the next one to line it up. But with this guy, I don't know anything about Ikram, and I don't really have an opinion about him, and I don't know, it just kind of bums me out. I can't see a guy being replaced short notice, and then he beats a guy on short notice and then gets a title shot. I just don't see that happening. For Robert, unfortunately. Now, again, had he beat Khamzat, we got an up-and-coming superstar. All right, now we're talking. But, again, somebody coming in on short notice, I just don't see it happening for him.
So let me throw this question out to you, Justin, because you know the ins and outs of the UFC way better than all of us. Pern asked, does Whittaker get more money to take this new replacement fight, given that's a horrible replacement for him? I have a guess, but what's your answer?
Yeah, they probably will renegotiate a little bit. I'm sure they will, especially with it is, but maybe not. Man, it's tough to say. Probably. I'll say probably. I don't know for sure, but I'd have to guess, especially if you're in Robert Whittaker's case, because, I mean, think about being Robert in this case. He doesn't have anything much to gain from this. He has an up-and-coming star, an up-and-coming really tough fighter that nobody really knows about. When I say nobody, I mean more like me. There's probably a lot of guys out here that know a lot about this guy. I just don't, so, I mean, it's a high risk, and it's a high risk, low reward. If he beats this guy on short notice, congratulations. He beats a guy that some people have never heard of. Or if he loses this guy, then he's going to be out of title contention. So I think it's very risky for Robert to take this fight. But Robert's a gangster. He's going to show up and he's going to do his thing.
I think so too, and I think the odds are probably going to be heavily in his favor. Now, the tiny ray of sunshine here is obviously I was all team Khamzat Chimaev, even though I love Robert Whittaker. Now I can happily root for Robert Whittaker, so that's a plus, I guess, if we're trying to find a silver lining here. Last thing, Celine, one of our loyal followers and subscribers, she said she missed the start. What's going to happen for Chandler? The fight is canceled. He's going to fight with someone else. All right, so just to answer your question, Celine, right now I don't think it's known officially, but what it appears to be is that I'm guessing Chandler is going to wait for this Conor fight to be rescheduled. And basically, I think from what we're understanding about the injury is that since they were thinking about actually having the fight as scheduled, it's probably not that severe. So hopefully they can reschedule this for later in the summer. At worst case, beginning of the fall. And Chandler will likely, from what it sounds like, he's still going to take this fight. Okay. So let's keep it going. We're going to move on. We're going to move backwards, actually, to topic number 3, which we skipped over. So this is just wild. What's happened in the last day is completely insane. We have a new replacement fight for UFC 303. Somehow the UFC has pulled this off. I don't even know how the heck they did this, because Alex Pereira in his last fight at UFC 300, which we all remember, broke one of his toes. That wasn't that long ago. That was in April. Okay. He broke one of his toes, and he went into that fight with another broken toe. So he had 2 broken toes coming out of UFC 300. He's been traveling. I don't even think he's been in full training. I'm sure he hasn't been in a training camp, but I don't even think he's been training hard. He's been in Australia. He has agreed to this fight against Jiri Prochazka, an insanely difficult fight. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but Justin, what are you expecting to see from Alex Pereira given those injuries and this quick turnaround time and the lack of a proper training camp?
Alex has been around the game for a long time. And when I say the game, I don't mean the UFC, but I mean combat sports. He's been kickboxing longer than probably everybody in the division. This guy knows his body. This guy knows his skill set. This guy knows what happened last time these guys fought. I don't think Alex would put himself in a spot that he thinks that he, isn't ready. And I know you're saying I don't know if he's been training because of this and because of traveling and because of injuries. But again, Alex isn't going to take on a tough challenge without thinking mentally that he's ready. He's not going to be like, I just need the payday. I better go in there. No. This guy is trying to cement his legacy as one of the best UFC fighters of all time, and I don't think he's going to put himself in a position to tarnish that legacy, especially after a guy that he's already beat.
I also you're probably right, but I also think there must have been a really, really good deal offered. I think he must have taken a lot of money, because the UFC, if they didn't find a solid replacement fight, I have to believe he was pretty much the only option that could even draw somewhat of a similar crowd and electricity that Conor's going to draw. So I imagine they had to throw a lot of money at the table, throw a lot of money at him on the table, because otherwise they were going to lose this massive gate. And so, still might lose a bit of it, but I imagine the bag must have been pretty desirable, and that led him to this. So what's your prediction for this fight? I mean, Jiri looked amazing in his last fight, coming out with that clutch victory. I mean, what do you see here given all the circumstances?
I see the same thing happening, man. Again, Alex is too smart. He's too calculated. This guy's game is growing. He's evolving every time he fights. I didn't really care for him when he first got into the UFC. It's like, this kickboxer come in, he gets 3 fights in the UFC, and now he's the champ. This guy has grown on me as a person. He's grown on me as a fighter. Jamal Hill is a friend of mine, dude. Every time we see each other at the gym, we're saying what's up, and shooting the shit. I hated to see what Alex did to Jamal, but Jamal is a freaking killer. And to see someone like Alex do that to Jamal was just incredible. So again, Alex has really grown on me over the last year and last couple months, and so I think this is going to be a similar outcome. But I think Alex is going to pick him apart and finish him in the mid rounds.
All right. Very interesting. Western Mass Climber in the comments did point out we're at 305 subs now. Woo, yeah. That is super exciting. And trust me, we are celebrating all the little victories. We're having a blast, as I continue to mention. So thank you guys. If you are watching right now and you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. And if you do like the video in the midst of what you've seen so far, feel free to click that like button. We really appreciate it. All right, moving along. Again, now we have another fight cancellation, and this is wild. So this is again your boy from Michigan, Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill was going to be in the co-main against Carlos Ulberg. If you don't know who Carlos Ulberg is, he is a Brazilian phenom, an up-and-coming fighter, just unbelievable. If you watch some of his highlights, he's incredible. And I mean, this was going to be a big challenge for both. I mean, on either side, right? For Carlos and for Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill now is reporting to have a knee injury. I mean, just all these changes to the June 22nd card and the June 29th card, International Fight Week. It's completely insane. Who has stepped up to the plate in short notice once again is Anthony Smith. This is just so crazy to me. And Anthony Smith, not too long ago in the Believe You Me podcast, talked about how he probably shouldn't be, like, he took the short notice fight against Khalil Roundtree and how that probably was a mistake, but he just can't say no. He just wants to get in there and do his thing. And I mean, now he's doing it again, and he just fought and won not too long ago. Hold on, let me pull up Anthony Smith's record. But I mean, gosh, Justin, as a fellow fighter, I just want to know your first opinion. I mean, what do you think about this decision from Anthony Smith? Or I mean, would you do something similar, or would you probably be like, nah, I need proper time to rest and recuperate?
I tell you what, man, I'm a dog. I fight. Anthony's a dog. He fights, man. When that phone rings, I don't give a fuck what the circumstances are. Real fighters answer the call, man. And Anthony Smith has shown it time and time again. This guy has been around. He's fought the best fighters in the world, arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. This guy is a fucking dog. He's that old school dog. You know, there's different generations of fighters. I really feel that I'm the last part of my generation of fighting. You know, you got my generation, then you have what I like to call the Conor McGregor generation, where everyone wants to pick and choose who they fight. It's like, oh, this is going to be a good matchup, trying to get these big wins. You got guys like Anthony Smith, Dana White, boom, hey, I need a fight. Anthony, you ready? Doesn't even think about it, answers the bell, gets the paycheck. And there's nothing more as a fighter that I respect than that, dude. I just think that anytime, anywhere mentality, everybody as a fighter talks about it. Everybody talks about, oh, I'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere, until it's time to fight. You know, and that's one thing that, you know, I hope I get remembered for my UFC career is, dude, 4 out of my 5 fights were on short notice. And, you know, and then the one that wasn't was down a weight class. Now you got another dog like Anthony Smith, again, fighting the best fighters in the world. He doesn't give an F. He shows up. He puts it all on the line every time. And he gives a great performance most times than not. More times than not.
Anthony Smith is a pure legend. I love watching him fight. I think a lot of people are huge fans of Anthony Smith in the MMA community, the UFC fan base as well. This is exciting. Do you have any thoughts, any reads, any predictions potentially on the outcome of this fight? And remember, Anthony Smith, I mean, he had an amazing victory. He won by guillotine, if you guys remember, on May 4th. This is like barely 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. He just had a full-on fight. What are your thoughts? What do you anticipate?
I don't know much about Carlos Ulberg. I can't say, but I do know enough about Anthony Smith to know that this guy is going to bring it. And that's the thing about short notice fights. Again, I go back to my experience, you know, of my short notice fights. When you're thrown in there, like, what's expected out of Anthony Smith? If he loses, is he never going to, you know, are they going to cut him? Absolutely not. That's one thing the UFC is really good at, is if you do take a short notice fight, you will get another fight. And I think Anthony Smith is going to go in there and do what he does. Again, I don't know enough about Carlos Ulberg to give an official prediction, but I do expect Anthony Smith to show up and bring a fight to this guy.
So, just to give you a quick summary, and here, actually, let me share the screen so you guys can see, and Justin, you can see what I'm looking at. So, Carlos Ulberg, for his last 7 fights in the UFC, he's won the last 6 in a row. I don't recognize many of these names. Justin, you may recognize some of these, but these are the guys that he's beaten. So now he's at 10-1 with only 1 loss to this gentleman, Kennedy. Not sure. Again, I'm not super sure on who these fighters are, but that's his record up till now. I know he's a hot phenom coming in, but he probably doesn't have that same longevity in the sport and that same experience level. But I know Dana White's talked about what a beast he is. So I guess we'll see, but we're definitely pulling for Anthony Smith here. We love Anthony Smith. What a G. And like you said, anytime, anywhere. Okay, moving on to our final topic for today. We got some good old-fashioned MMA YouTube beef. I was telling Justin earlier, like, this isn't exactly Justin's lane, right? He doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of like the MMA Guru and Ariel Helwani and all this stuff. But this is stuff I love because this is the stuff I listen to all the time. Even MMA Joey is amazing. So now what's been going on back and forth, just to close out the show with a little bit of fun drama. We have a beef brewing between Michael Bisping and Ariel Helwani, and who are basically friends, and they've got along great for a long time. So I don't really know where this is coming from or why, but we're going to start by playing a little clip from Michael Bisping talking some smack about Ariel Helwani, and then we're going to go to Ariel's response. Here we go.
Who gives a and it's none of your business. Do you know what I mean? What will be. Stay out of it, you prick. I see Ariel Helwani's out there, right? And he's posting and he's tweeting. A lot of the time he's posting and tweeting like he's an expert on everything, but he knows nothing. He's putting feelers out there. But Ariel also is the type of guy to be calling managers, agents, fighters, coaches, sparring partners, because that's what he wants to do. That's his badge of honor. He likes to break news. Do you know what I mean? I'm much like you or anyone else. I obviously am involved with the sport. I'll be commentating this weekend and I have contacts and stuff like that. But if I hear of a situation, I'm not doing investigative journalism, trying to find out, like my life depends on it, and I will risk everything so I can be the one to break it, because who gives a and it's none of your business. Do you know what I mean? What will be. Stay out of it, you prick.
Okay, so that's just kind of stuff. Like, I just don't like it. This whole thing is funny to me because, and Jesse on Fire did a really good post on this earlier today. But I mean, it's just so funny to me because he's getting mad or like venting frustration about Ariel for Ariel doing his actual job. He's like, I'm not out here trying to do investigative journalism. That's what Ariel is. He's a journalist. So I don't really understand why Bisping's getting so irritated. It's almost like as if, maybe the UFC, the fact that he's so close with the organization and Dana White, maybe some of that vitriol for Ariel Helwani is rubbing off on him and he feels the need to talk some smack. I don't know. But anyways, hold on. Before I get your reaction, I want to play you Ariel's response, because if you talk smack about Ariel long enough, eventually he gets in the mix and he fires back, and he does not hold back when he does so. So it's like there's something now brewing between Ariel and Bisping. I would be scared to go with Bisping, me personally, but hey, props to you, Ariel. So here we go. Here's his response.
Hey, shout out to Bootlicker Bisping. That's his new nickname.
He's calling him Bootlicker Bisping because he's talking smack about Ariel. He talks smack like a fighter, it's just so funny. It's too good. Okay, let me play a little bit of. Oh, you're muted.
Before. He talks smack like a fighter because he Ariel to me looks like a weasel. You look at his face, you look at his build, he looks like a weasel. And I guarantee he won't say that to Bisping's face. And if he does, actually, I can't guarantee that, because if Bisping did anything of it like a man and slapped the shit out of him, Ariel Helwani's the type of guy that would call the police. Anyways, go ahead. Say what
I think, and he people have said this to him. You wouldn't say it to my face. He's like, try me. He's like, I've been in front of all the most dangerous fighters in the world, and I've said exactly what I feel to their face. He's like, you think I would back down because I'm afraid? Like he claims that he would. So I don't know. Props to him, and I think he knows obviously he has no chance in the fight, but he doesn't back down. Okay, hold on. Let me play this. Here we go. Check this out. Ariel responding to Michael Bisping.
Nickname. Bootlicker Bisping. Every time he goes on a show, I don't say a word about that guy, and he goes on these rants about me on his show. He has no idea what my job is, what it entails. He forgets who called him before UFC 199. We used to be really good friends, and all of a sudden he's decided, like Ali did, it's better to take shots at me when I never talk about him or his content. And he's going on these crazy rants about me. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that guy. But someone sent me a clip of him just going like so mad. Jeez. Yeah, wee-wees. So mad, so much vitriol about me doing my job. Like, I have to know. When's the last time I broke any news? I don't want to. I don't.
This is actually true. So just to get Ariel's back here, he actually has talked about this many times that he's no longer interested in breaking news. Instead, he's more interested in interviewing fighters. That's his bread and butter. That's what he loves. He loves the stories, as do I, that come with this game in terms of telling the stories of the fighters. So that's what he loves. He's no longer, he used to be, that used to be a big part of his job, was breaking news stories. He says the reason why this is the one that he broke is because he was shocked that no journalists were reporting on the Conor McGregor situation, what was coming out of the fight camp, etc. So he had to be the one that kind of communicated to the public about what was going on. But again, within the guidelines of what he felt comfortable disclosing, because he was asked not to disclose the, exactly what was happening, but just sort of give certain little clues and tidbits. One that I picked up on, which is, again, he said, hey, sometimes things happen in training camp. I'm going to keep going back to that because I think he was really heavily insinuating that, yes, there is there's an injury. By the way, we got a comment here. I'm going to get off this now. We got a comment here from Pern. He said, I don't care if he's wrong. I'm Team Bisping on this. Not a fan of Newhart Ariel. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not the biggest fan of when Ariel goes off on fighters and does all this stuff because it is a little bit silly in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I understand he's got to defend himself. He's got to stick up for himself. But the thing I like about Ariel is, once again, what is the best part of the fight game? And to me, it's 50-50 almost, right? Obviously, you have the fights, but it's the stories. It's the details of trials and tribulations that fighters face. It's how they overcome adversity and then how we can apply those lessons. It's almost like the entire sport of mixed martial arts for me is one giant self-help book. And that's how I view it. And Ariel is a huge component of that. By the way, eventually, I do want to do a video about why I think Ariel Helwani should do one more sit-down interview with Dana White. We're going to come back to that. But Justin, let me turn it back over to you. So Pern says, he's Michael Bisping, Team Bisping all the way. I mean, what are your final thoughts as we close the show out in terms of this beef and Ariel's role in the whole sport of MMA? Oh, wait, let me unmute you. Hold on one second. All right. Oh, no, you have to unmute yourself because it says you muted it. There you go.
So just like you said at the beginning, Ariel is an investigative journalist, and I support that, man. So I don't really understand why Bisping is getting down his throat on that. I mean, I do and I don't in a sense, but he's just doing his job. You know what I mean? And how can you really hate on a guy for doing his job, especially when I really think, regardless of what people feel about Ariel, I think he's one of the best out there, one of the best in the business. Now, I have seen him leak information that is false and, leak it without backage or, kind of like fish around. I don't really care for that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think he's a great journalist and, say that stuff to Bisping's face, man, see what happens.
Oh man, I hope for his sake he does not. All right, guys, listen, we are having a blast on this stream. We had a nice solid following today and audience today. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you are new to the stream and you're not a subscriber, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you join along in this journey with us. We're having a blast. Again, me as the fan, Justin as the professional. I think we got a unique angle and a unique duo here where we got the fan and the professional together, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the show and what we talk about, because we're talking about what's interesting legitimately to us, and hopefully it's legitimately interesting to you. That's what we assume. So thank you guys so much for joining. We're gonna have a ton of content coming out more this weekend before our show on Monday as well, so stay tuned for that.
Hey, wait. There's something else happening. There's something else happening Monday too. I think we have some guests coming on Monday.
Oh, yes.
Wait, how do you forget about that? Like, come on, we got the biggest platform. We're on the biggest platform right now. Go ahead, release that shit.
Okay, so I believe we're gonna have but I know we're gonna have Don Fry, an MMA legend, right? And then what was the gentleman's name? The comedian
Adam Hunter.
Adam Hunter is going to be joining us. So by the way, that's another thing we're going to start doing is we're going to have guests coming on. So Don Fry is an old school MMA legend. He's a beast.
Legend, bro. Pride legend.
Yeah, Pride legend. And Adam Hunter is actually a comedian who is not afraid to go in on fighters. He's actually had Justin up and ripped on him in some of his stand-up routines and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a big Monday show planned for you guys. So make sure to check back. And we're going to keep having more and more guests. Me and Justin have talked about it behind the scenes, and we want that to be a bigger part of the show. Obviously, Justin knows everybody in the fight game, so we're going to leverage that and have more and more interesting people. If you guys want to see specific people on the show in particular or anything else that you want us to touch on, make sure to let us know in the comments or in the chat. All right, that is it. Justin doing his thing in Michigan, and we are going to wrap it up. Thank you guys as always for joining, and we will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.